Okay, good morning, everyone. So, this session is actually for the students whoever need to pass in the supplementary exams. For that, we are helping you by explaining some of the important questions. First of all, this is Swati Padmashri, Geology HOD. So here, I am there in order to help you to give you some important IP related questions of all sessions like LAQs and SAQs and VSAQs. So in every session, I would like to cover important LAQs, SAQs, and even some of the VSAQs also. So mainly LAQ point of view, definitely the students who are going to attempt this supplementary exams, so they need to be perfect with 4 important questions. One is structure of heart, and second one is working of heart, structure of heart with label diagram. Then second question is working of heart with label diagram. Third question, explain the structure of male reproductive system with the help of diagram. And fourth question is female reproductive system with the help of diagram. So that means among all the chapters which you are having, mainly you are getting LAQs from 3 chapters. One is body fluids and circulation, and the second one is human reproduction, and the third one is genetics. So I feel like if you learn the questions of body fluids and circulation and reproduction, that will be very easy for you. So that because overall generally repetitive questions only they are giving, like 4 questions. Among the 4 questions, definitely you are going to get 2 questions. As I told you now, structure of heart with label diagram, then working of heart with label diagram, male reproductive system and female reproductive system with label diagrams. If you are perfect with these 4 questions, definitely at any cost, you will be able to answer 2 LAQs, so that you will be getting 15 or 16 marks. So today, I would like to cover one of the important LAQ along with one of the important SAQ. So first I am going with LAQ question, long answer question, that which carries 8 marks. So that is structure of heart with label diagram. So every day, whatever the question I am teaching you, same day you prepare it. So draw the diagram, learn the question and write without seeing, so that you will become perfect along with the SAQs which I am going to teach. So let us start now with no more delay. Let us start the first question, that is 8-mark question, LAQ, important LAQ. So that is structure of heart. So whenever it comes to structure of heart, actually by seeing the lengthy answer, most of you know, you become scared, but actually no need to get scared. If you learn properly as points wise, and when you know the diagram properly, so if you learn the diagram, so by seeing the diagram only you can make your own content. So let us see, let me give some tips how to make the answer short, sweet and simple. And in the same way, the tips in order to follow the diagram easily. So structure of heart, when it comes to heart, first of all, no, you need to write at least some of the points related to introduction. Like what is heart? What is the function of heart? Where it is situated? What is the size of the heart? Heart is covered by what? Okay, so like that preliminary things. And heart is made up of with how many chambers? When you write some of these basic introductory points, so there itself you will get some of the marks. So let us see what are that introductory points. So the introductory points are, so everybody, you know that heart is an important central pumping organ of the body, right? So it is a pumping organ of the body where it pumps the oxygenated blood to different parts of the body. So you can make it in a simple way that heart is a central pumping organ of blood vascular system. This is the first point which you can write. And a heart is a muscular pulsating organ. So with what it is actually made up of with means, so it is made up of with cardiac muscle. Already in first year, you people have learned that heart is made up of with cardiac muscle. So heart is muscular and pulsating. So that means whenever heart pumps the blood, so that pumping of the blood actually can be recorded as a pulse. So where it can be called as a pulsating organ. So then next coming to size and shape of the heart. So what is the shape of the heart? Heart is conical in shape. So just one word you can remember, like heart is conical in shape. And the size of the heart, coming to size of the heart. So heart is about the size of a fist. So a clenched fist. That means if we hold our hand, if we close our hand like this, the palm region, so how much size it will be, that is only called as fist. So which is called as clenched fist. So heart is the size of a clenched fist. And location, where heart is situated. So where heart is situated? So heart is situated in the thoracic region. So this chest region is only called as thoracic region. So heart is situated in the thoracic region, and particularly in a specialized place in the thoracic region called as mediastinum. So that is called as mediastinum. So this word you need to remember. Heart is situated in the mediastinum thorax, in between two lungs. So between two lungs, heart is situated where its apex portion is only slightly tilted towards left side. So generally, you would have listened that people saying heart is situated towards the left side of the body, but that is not correct. So heart is situated at the center in between the two lungs, where only the apex portion. So this is the, so heart is conical in shape, no? So this apex portion of the heart is only slightly tilted towards left side like this. So these are the basic preliminary points which you need to remember. That heart is a central pumping organ of blood vascular system. It is a muscular pulsating organ, conical in shape. So size almost, that is about a clenched fist, and it is situated in the mediastinum thorax in between the two lungs. Then heart is covered by what? So heart, which is four-chambered in case of mammals. That means in case of human beings, heart is four-chambered. So this four-chambered heart, it is surrounded by means of a membrane called as, a double-layered membrane called as pericardium. So pericardium is a double-layered membrane. So the four-chambered heart is actually surrounded by means of a double-layered membrane like this. So this double-layered membrane is only called as what? So the double-layered membrane is only called as pericardium. So this pericardium, again it is divided into outer fibrous pericardium and inner serous pericardium. So the pericardium is divided into outer fibrous pericardium and inner serous pericardium. And again this inner serous pericardium is divided into two layers. So this, about this pericardium, easily you can remember as a mind map. Like this, in the form of a flow chart, you can remember like pericardium is divided into outer fibrous pericardium, inner serous pericardium, and again inner serous pericardium is divided into outer parietal peritoneum and inner visceral peritoneum. Outer parietal peritoneum and then inner visceral peritoneum. So this is very simple. For example, if this is fibrous pericardium like this, so this entire thing is fibrous pericardium, then inner serous pericardium is there, that which is divided into two layers like outer parietal peritoneum. So this is outer parietal peritoneum. So that which is in contact with fibrous pericardium, and inner one is called as visceral peritoneum. So this is visceral peritoneum. So now that which is in association with the surface of the heart muscle. So whatever the space now which is present in between these two layers. So the two layers are what? Outer parietal peritoneum and inner visceral peritoneum. Whatever the PV which I have represented as. So this entire thing is what? This entire thing is fibrous pericardium. So fibrous pericardium, outer parietal layer and inner visceral layer together called as serous pericardium. So the space present between these two layers is only called as pericardial space. So that space is only called as pericardial space, which is filled with the fluid. So that fluid is only called as pericardial fluid. The pericardial space is filled with the fluid called as pericardial fluid. And what is the function of this pericardial fluid? So pericardial fluid, it helps in reducing the friction between these two membranes so that it will not be allowing any rupturing or adhering. So in case of any mechanical shocks or injuries. So that means it is almost acting like a lubricant. So protecting the heart from mechanical shocks and injuries by reducing the friction between two membranes. So like this, about pericardium, you need to write some points. Like heart is surrounded by a double layered pericardium called as outer fibrous pericardium and inner serous pericardium. Inner serous pericardium, again, it is divided into two layers, like outer parietal peritoneum and inner visceral peritoneum. So this parietal and visceral peritoneum, in between these two, the space is called as pericardial space, filled with pericardial fluid, see, that which reduces the friction between two membranes. So these are the preliminary things which you need to talk about. And after that, coming to the walls of the heart. So heart, next you can keep side heading as walls of heart. This entire thing you can keep as introduction part as side heading. And next you can keep side heading as walls of heart, so that it makes easy for the examiner that you know the content properly. By seeing your side headings only, they can understand that you know the content properly and you have written something about that. So there are three walls in the heart. So the muscular heart, the heart present in case of human beings or mammals. So totally there are three walls. So the first one is called as epicardium, which is the outermost wall of the heart. Actually, epicardium is nothing but this visceral peritoneum only. Whatever the inner visceral peritoneum we have talked about, so that only forms as outer epicardium. Epi. So the name itself indicates out or surface, out of. Then epicardium, then the middle myocardium. So this myocardium is the major portion, almost 95% of the heart. It is made up of with this myocardium only. So that which forms major portion. So, and it is made up of with cardiac muscle. It is made up of with cardiac muscle. So epicardium is the outermost wall. Then middle one is myocardium. And next third layer is called as endocardium. The third layer is called as endocardium. So this endocardium is the thin endothelial lining. The thin endothelial lining. So this thin endothelial lining is actually projecting into this myocardium. So endothelium is always nothing but supplied with blood capillaries. So the heart also should receive the blood. So for that, the blood capillaries are present. So endocardium is composed of thin endothelial lining. So like that, heart is made up of totally with three walls, like epicardium, myocardium, and endocardium. So epicardium is the outermost wall, and the middle wall is myocardium, which is made up of with cardiac muscle, and the thin endothelial lining comprises as endocardium. So these are the three walls of the heart. So like this, after introduction, mainly you should mention about the walls of the heart. The next coming to the chambers of the heart. So with what exactly the heart is made up of with. So in case of human beings, heart is four-chambered. Four-chambered heart is present with two atria and two ventricles. The upper chambers of the heart are called as atria. The upper chambers of the heart are called as atria. And the lower chambers of the heart are called as ventricles. So now coming to chambers. heart is four-chambered in case of human beings. As I told you, the upper two chambers are called as atria. So these upper two chambers are only called as atria. So atria are the upper and smaller chambers of the heart. And whereas the lower chambers of the heart are called as ventricles. So the lower two chambers of the heart are called as ventricles. And these ventricles are lower, larger chambers of the heart. They are lower, larger chambers of the heart. The right upper chamber of the heart is called as the right atrium. And the upper left chamber of the heart is called as the left atrium. The lower right chamber of the heart is right ventricle. And the lower left chamber of the heart is left ventricle. So like this, first you need to mention about the four chambers. Always atria are smaller when compared to that of ventricles. And both the right and left atria, again they are separated by means of a thin-walled interatrial septum. So interatrial septum, the name itself indicates inter, in between, atria. Between two atria, a septum, that means a thin wall is present, a thin muscular wall is present, that which are separating both the atria. So which is only called as interatrial septum. Whenever you are talking about interatrial septum, here you need to mention about foramen of ovale. Actually, whenever we are in embryonic condition, so an opening, an aperture is present in this interatrial septum called as foramen of ovale. So this foramen of ovale, which is an aperture during embryonic condition, it will be closing soon after birth. So that means when the lungs become functional, there is no need of this foramen of ovale. So foramen of ovale, it closes soon after the birth. And whatever the depression that which is left over in the interatrial septum, that can be called as, that depression can be called as fossa ovalis. So the depression can be called as fossa ovalis. So fossa ovalis is the remnant. Remnant means what? Leftover depression of foramen of ovale present in the interatrial septum during the embryonic stage, that which closes soon after the birth. And next, both the ventricles, right ventricle and then left ventricle, so they are separated again by means of a wall. So that wall is only called as interventricular septum. So the wall that which is separating the right ventricle and the left ventricle is only called as interventricular septum. So interatrial septum is present between right atria and left atria, and interventricular septum is present between right ventricle and then left ventricle. And not only that, right atrium and right ventricle, in the same way left atrium and then left ventricle, they are also separated. So by means of atrioventricular grooves, I mean atrioventricular septum. So it is separated by means of atrioventricular septum, AV septum, atrioventricular septum, or it can be called as coronary sulcus. So coronary sulcus, atrioventricular septum or coronary sulcus, where the right atrium is opening into right ventricle. So right atrium is separated from right ventricle by right auriculoventricular septum. We can call it as right auriculoventricular septum, that which contain an aperture called as right auriculoventricular aperture. So this aperture is actually guarded by means of a valve, that which can be called as bicuspid valve. So that can be guarded by means of a valve. So that valve is only called as bicuspid tricuspid valve. So this side, right side is tricuspid valve. So that means it contains totally 3 cusps. So which is called as tricuspid valve. So tricuspid valve is present, and whereas the left atrium is separated from left ventricle again by means of left auriculoventricular septum, that which contain an aperture, left auriculoventricular aperture, again that which is guarded by means of the cusps. So 2 cusps. So which can be called as bicuspid valve. It can be called as bicuspid valve, or it can also be called as mitral valve. So bicuspid valve or mitral valve. So like this, first of all, you should talk about the septa that which are separating the 4 chambers of the heart. Right atrium and left atrium is separated by interauricular septum. It is separated by means of interauricular septum or interatrial septum. And right ventricle and left ventricle are separated by means of interventricular septum. Interatrial septum is thin when compared to interventricular septum, and the right atria and right ventricle is separated by right auriculoventricular septum, which contain an aperture, that is an opening guarded by tricuspid valve. So that means totally it contains 3 cusps. And whereas the left auriculoventricular septum, it is the septum, that is the wall present between left atrium and then left ventricle, that which contain an opening called as left auriculoventricular aperture. So guarded by means of only 2 cusps. Okay, so 2 cusps. So which is called as bicuspid valve, or it can also be called as mitral valve. And not only that, when it comes to the ventricles, so the wall of the ventricles, they contain some series of ridges like this. Already I told you that it is covered by a pericardial membrane like this. And here the ventricles, it contains some series of ridges like this. So this series of ridges are only called as columnae carneae. Columnae carneae, or it can also be called as trabeculae carneae. Columnae carneae or trabeculae carneae. So some of these ridges are of cone shaped. Some of these ridges are of cone shaped like this, that which can be called as papillary muscles. So some of the ridges, whatever formed, so they are cone shaped like this. So these cone shaped ridges which are formed from the wall of the ventricles, so they can be called as papillary muscles. They can be called as papillary muscles. And the AV valves. What are AV valves? Tricuspid valve and bicuspid valve. Together they can be called as AV valves, atrioventricular valves. Here, the meaning of the valve is that which allows the blood to flow only in one direction and prevent the backward flow of blood. So that is the meaning of valve. So valve always allow to move the blood only in one direction, but it prevents the backward flow of direction. So that is the meaning of the valve. So here AV valves are atrioventricular valves. Atrioventricular valves are tricuspid valve and then bicuspid valve. Tricuspid valve and bicuspid valve together are called as AV valves. So these AV valves are in connection with this papillary muscles, so which is called as cardae tendinae. So these AV valves are in connection with the columnae carneae or trabeculae carneae by means of cardae tendinae. Some tendon-like structures which can be called as some tendon-like cords are formed, that which help in preventing the AV valves bulging into the atria. So in order to prevent the AV valves bulging into the respective atria, so to prevent that, here the AV valves are in connection with the papillary muscles by means of some tendon-like cords, which are called as cardiac tendinae, So like this, whenever you talk about the four chambers of the heart, so the upper two chambers are atria and the lower two chambers are ventricles. Always atria are smaller in size when compared to that of the ventricles. Right upper chamber is right atrium, left upper chamber is left atrium, right lower chamber is right ventricle, left lower chamber is left ventricle. And both the atria are separated by means of interatrial septum. And in interatrial septum, you should write about one point called as regarding foramen of ovale, which is an aperture present in the interatrial septum during embryonic condition, that which closes soon after the birth. And whatever the remnant left over, that is called as fossa ovalis. Fossa ovalis is the remnant of foramen of ovale. Remnant means what? Like a leftover print. The leftover print. For example, when we walk on sand, so how come one knows that no, somebody has walked on the sand? By seeing the footprints. In the same way, the print, whatever the leftover print as a symbol, as a sign, so that is only called as what? Fossa ovalis. And next one is the ventricles. Both the ventricles are separated by means of a thick interventricular septum, and right atrium is separated from right ventricle by right auriculoventricular septum containing an aperture guarded by three cusps, three valves, which is called as tricuspid valve. In the same way, left atrium is separated from left ventricle, so by means of left auriculoventricular septum containing an aperture, an opening in order to pump the blood, so which is guarded by two cusps called as bicuspid valve. So then next, coming to, actually when we see the external structure of the heart, when you come to this question, you need to draw two diagrams actually. So one is external structure of heart and the other one is internal structure of heart. So in external structure of heart, just you need to show only the basic things, not the inner details, anatomical details like cardiac tendinae, columnae, corneae, all these things you need not to show. Mainly in external structure of heart, as I told you already, the atrioventricular septum you need to show. Atrioventricular septum you need to show. And right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle and left ventricle. And not only that, here mainly you are supposed to show the coronary arteries, because the interventricular septum from anterior to posterior, okay, it is containing the coronary arteries with its branches. So whenever you show the external structure of heart, so mainly you need to focus on this AV, atrioventricular septum, and not only that, interventricular septum with coronary artery. So this is left coronary artery, and next this is right coronary artery. So I will introduce this, the terms like what are this coronary artery and what are coronary veins, all these things I will let you know. Okay, so when you show the external structure of heart, just you need to show the different blood vessels that which are in connection with the heart. I will discuss now regarding them. So like this, in external structure, mainly you need to focus only on the blood vessels, different blood vessels showing that which are in connection with the heart. So like this, mainly different types of blood vessels you need to show. And right coronary artery, left coronary artery, AV septum, right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle, and different blood vessels like this is pulmonary artery, and this is pulmonary vein. So pulmonary veins, right pulmonary veins and left pulmonary veins. And this is superior vena cava. And this is inferior vena cava. So they only been mentioned as precaval veins and then postcaval veins in your textbook. And finally, this is systemic aorta or systemic arch. Systemic aorta. So like this, mainly coronary artery, right coronary artery, left coronary artery, superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, pulmonary artery, pulmonary veins, and in the right atrium, even you can show the coronary veins because the coronary veins emerge in the right atrium. So you can show coronary veins. So definitely by seeing this, you would be confused that what are these different arteries and veins. Next, we will come to blood vessels. So just here, I'm giving you information that whenever you draw the structure of external structure of heart. So this is external structure of heart, just where you are showing the septum, atrioventricular septum with coronary arteries and different blood vessels that which are in connection with the heart. So only this diagram you are supposed to draw for the external structure. In the internal structure, you will give complete details. Now, let me tell what are the different blood vessels that which are in connection with the heart, so that internal structure diagram also will become very easy for you. So this is external structure of heart diagram. So this is external structure of heart diagram. Now coming to internal structure of heart. Already I gave you the details about atria and ventricles. Now let us see only the different blood vessels that which are in connection with the heart. So now let me show the internal structure of heart diagram with the explanation. So there are different blood vessels that which are in connection with the heart. The first one is superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. So the name itself indicates that they are veins. Superior vena cava and then inferior vena cava, they are the veins. Veins always they will collect deoxygenated blood. They collect deoxygenated blood from different body parts and they open into right atrium of the heart. So RA means right atrium of the heart, but in exam you need to write full name. So right atrium of the heart, superior vena cava and then inferior vena cava will collect deoxygenated blood from different body parts and they open into right atrium of the heart. Then from the right atrium, the deoxygenated blood is pumped into right ventricle. So from the right ventricle, actually pulmonary arch will arise, that which contain two branches, right pulmonary artery and left pulmonary artery. So you need to show two branches for the pulmonary arch, that is right pulmonary artery and then left pulmonary artery. So that which carries deoxygenated blood to the lungs. So in the lungs, blood will be oxygenated. Again, the oxygenated blood will be collected by two sets of pulmonary veins. Okay, from the right lung of the heart, right pulmonary vein, a set of pulmonary vein will collect the oxygenated blood and open into right chamber of the heart. And so both of them they open into left chamber of the heart. So the two sets of pulmonary veins which are collecting blood from right lung of the heart and the left lung of the heart. So both of them they open into left atrium. So the pulmonary veins, they collect which kind of blood? Oxygenated blood from lungs, and they open into left atrium of the heart. So like this, pulmonary veins you should show. And finally, systemic arch. So systemic arch, it arises from left ventricle. It arises from left ventricle, that which carry oxygenated blood to different body parts. That which carry oxygenated blood to different body parts. So totally 4 blood vessels I told you, superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. So that is largest vein of the body. The vena cava is the largest vein of the body, which is divided as superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. So that which collects deoxygenated blood and opens into right atrium of the heart. And then pulmonary arch divides into right pulmonary artery and then left pulmonary artery, that which takes deoxygenated blood to lungs. It takes deoxygenated blood to lungs. And the oxygenated blood from the right lung of the heart and the left lung of the heart collected by 2 sets of pulmonary veins, which will open into left atrium of the heart. And next, systemic arch, that which carry oxygenated blood from the left ventricle, because already from the left atrium oxygenated blood has been pumped into left ventricle. So from the left ventricle oxygenated blood, it is taken by systemic arch to different body parts. And apart from this, there are 2 more blood vessels that which are arising from the heart itself. So they are related to the heart itself. So one is coronary vein and the other one is coronary artery. So coronary veins arise from right atrium of the heart so they are actually opening in the right atrium of the heart by collecting all the deoxygenated blood from different walls of the heart and open into the right atrium. So the coronary vein collects deoxygenated blood and open into right atrium of the heart. And coronary artery arises in the left ventricle, where in the left ventricle oxygenated blood is there. So this coronary artery, which is arising in the left ventricle, collects oxygenated blood and supplies to the 3 walls of the heart. So like this, coronary vein and coronary artery both are related only with the heart. So like this, totally 6 blood vessels you need to remember. Now let us see overall internal structure of the heart with the overall revision. As I told you, heart is 4-chambered in case of mammals or human beings. So where this 4-chambered heart, it is surrounded by means of a double-layered pericardium with outer fibrous pericardium and inner serous pericardium. Inner serous pericardium, parietal and visceral peritoneum. So this is right atrium, this is left atrium, this is right ventricle, and this is left ventricle. As I told you already, both the ventricles are separated by means of interventricular septum. So this is interventricular septum. And the right atria and left atria are also separated by means of interatrial septum. Interatrial septum. So this is interatrial septa. Interatrial septa. Okay. So interatrial septum is also present. Then the right atrium and left atrium are separated by means of right auriculoventricular septum, and that right auriculoventricular septum is having an opening that which is guarded by means of tricuspid valve. So this is tricuspid valve. And left atrium opens into left ventricle through left auriculoventricular septum containing aperture. So that aperture is guarded by means of valve, two cusps, containing two cusps, called as bicuspid valve, or otherwise it can also be called as mitral valve. Okay. So now let us see the blood vessels that which are in connection with. So as I told you already, superior vena cava, which collects deoxygenated blood from upper parts of the body, and inferior vena cava, which collects deoxygenated blood from lower parts of the body. Both of them, they open into right atrium. Now the blood from right atrium is pumped into right ventricle. So from the right ventricle, as I told you already, a pulmonary arch will arise, that which contain this pulmonary arch. It consists of two branches. So the two branches are left pulmonary artery and then right pulmonary artery. Left pulmonary artery and right pulmonary artery. So this is right pulmonary artery. And this is superior vena cava. This is inferior vena cava. And this is left pulmonary artery. And the oxygenated blood from the lungs will come through two sets of pulmonary veins that which open into left atrium. Even though you are showing here actually from the back end, they are opening into left atrium of the heart only. So this is pulmonary veins. So this is also pulmonary vein. So pulmonary veins. Then systemic aorta, which is arising actually from the left ventricle. So that is an arch, systemic arch, that which supplies oxygenated blood to different body parts. So this arch, the systemic arch with branches. So systemic arch. So this is systemic aorta. This is systemic aorta. So like this, the different blood vessels you need to show. And even as I told you already, the wall of the ventricle is showing series of ridges. So like this, some series of ridges. And in this, some ridges are of cone shaped. So cone shaped like this. So that which are connected by tendon-like cords called as cardae tendinae. So this is cardae tendinae, and the cone-shaped structures are called as papillary muscles. So these are papillary muscles. And just only the ridges are called as trabeculae corneae or columnae corneae. So trabeculae corneae or columnae corneae. And again here also, almost two of them are cone shaped like this, that which are again connected by means of tendon-like cords. Tendon-like cords. Okay. And one more thing, the opening of inferior vena cava into right atrium, it is guarded. The opening of inferior vena cava into right atrium, it is guarded by means of a valve which is called as Eustachian valve. And the opening of coronary sinus, that is coronary vein, into right atrium, it is again guarded by means of valve of Thebetius. Valve of Thebetius. So like this, two more valve names also you should remember. Eustachian valve and then valve of Thebetius. Opening of inferior vena cava into right atrium is guarded by Eustachian valve, and opening of coronary vein into right atrium, as I told you here. So that is also guarded by valve of Thebetius in order to prevent the backflow of blood. And the last point, that is pulmonary arch and systemic arch. Pulmonary arch and systemic arch both are connected by means of ductus arteriosus, where the remnant of it is ligamentum arteriosum. Ligamentum arteriosum. So that means both the pulmonary arch and the systemic arch are connected by means of ductus arteriosus during embryonic stage. And after the birth, the ductus arteriosus is present as a remnant called as ligamentum arteriosum. So that ligamentum arteriosum is connecting pulmonary arch and then systemic arch. So that point also you should remember. So where in interatrial septum, foramen of ovale, fossa ovalis. Whereas pulmonary arch and systemic arch are connected by ligamentum arteriosum, which is the remnant of ductus arteriosus. So the 2 points you should remember, and 4 valves you should remember: tricuspid valve, bicuspid valve, then Eustachian valve, and then valve of Thebetius. Tricuspid valve between right atrium and right ventricle, bicuspid or mitral valve between left atrium and left ventricle, then Eustachian valve in between inferior vena cava and then right atrium, and valve of Thebetius between coronary vein and then right atrium. So like this, in the exam paper very clearly you should mention about 4 valves, then 6 blood vessels, that is superior and inferior vena cava together, pulmonary arch, pulmonary vein, systemic arch, coronary vein, coronary artery. Okay, like the 6 blood vessels, 4 valves, and then 2 remnants. 2 remnants, that is ligamentum arteriosum and then fossa ovalis, you are supposed to mention. And last but not the least, at least 1 or 2 points you should write about conducting system of the heart, or you can keep side heading as nodal tissue of the heart. So what is this nodal tissue of the heart? Actually, the type of the heart present in humans is autorhythmic heart or myogenic heart, we will call it as, because here the muscle fibers itself, they start to conduct the impulses. They are responsible for the generation of impulses. When these impulses are passed throughout the walls of the heart, then only the heart chambers can contract and pump the blood. So, and it is generating impulses on its own. And as the cardiac muscle fibers are generating the impulses on its own, that's why it is called as autorhythmic heart. But it is not all the cardiac muscle fibers. Some specialized fibers are present, which are called as nodal fibers, that which help in generating own impulses. In that, the first one is sino-auricular node, SA node. So this sino-auricular node, it is called as pacemaker of the heart. Why it is called as pacemaker? This sino-auricular node located in the right upper corner of right atrium. Here, SA node is located in the right upper corner of right atrium. So it is responsible for the generation of impulses first, electrical currents first. So that's why it is called as pacemaker of the heart. Then from the SA node, that impulses will be passed to AV node, atrioventricular node. This atrioventricular node is present in the lower left corner of the right atrium. That means here, it is present in the lower left corner of right atrium. So lower left corner of right atrium. Whereas SA node is present in right upper corner of right atrium. Right upper corner of right atrium. So at least these 2 points you mention about nodal tissue. Remaining in detail about nodal tissue in the working of heart we can discuss in tomorrow's class. So like this, nodal tissue mainly contains 2 nodes. One is sinoauricular node and the other one is AV node. So this is internal structure of heart diagram with all septa, valves, blood vessels, everything. So like this, once you know the diagram properly, by seeing the diagram only, you can write your own, you can make the points, exact points. Hope that the structure of heart is clear for you. And next, let me discuss one SAQ, important SAQ. Even in the main exam, you got that SAQ. Actually, SAQs will come from digestion and absorption lesson definitely. So that's why I want to take one SAQ in that today. So that is functions of liver. It is very simple. Very, very simple. Functions of liver. So SAQ I want to take. So liver is an important organ when compared to that of heart and brain. So it may be surprising for you to listen that. Why madam is saying liver is more important when compared to heart and brain, you may think. But actually that is fact. Heart is doing one function like pumping of oxygenated blood and receiving deoxygenated blood. Then brain is involved in controlling different organs of the body. But liver is the one organ that which is performing different functions. So that's why liver is most important organ of the body when compared to any other organ of the body. Let us see the different functions of liver. So first of all, liver secretes bile juice. Already we have discussed that this bile juice contain bile salts. What is the function of bile salts? Emulsification of fats. What is meant by emulsification? Breaking of larger fats into smaller fats so that digestion of fat can happen easily. So the first function is liver secretes bile juice which contain bile salts. Bile salts help in emulsification of fats. Like in a simple way, you can write it as a point. Then second function. So liver is the main organ that which controls carbohydrate and protein metabolism. See, many metabolisms it control, but mainly protein and carbohydrate metabolism are under the control of the liver. Then liver acts as a excretory organ by excreting the unnecessary substances like bile pigments, then unnecessary like extra drugs, whatever are there, like that. No, by excreting certain things, it acts as a excretory organ. And fourth one, it can also be called as a detoxifying organ because it helps in detoxification of different toxic substances that which get absorbed from the intestine to the liver. So it acts as a excretory organ by excreting different substances like bile pigments and converting detoxifying substances. Okay, I mean converting toxifying substances into detoxifying substances like drugs. And next one is liver also plays an important role in deamination of proteins. Deamination of proteins, that means amino group is lost from the amino acid of the protein so that it will be converted into different derivatives. So deamination of proteins happens in the liver. And the next function of liver is Cori cycle occurs in liver. Already you would be having some idea about Cori cycle. During anaerobic breakdown in the muscle, what happens during anaerobic respiration in the muscle? Lactic acid is formed. Again, this lactic acid will get converted into glucose through pyruvate. So, which is called as gluconeogenesis or Cori cycle. So that important Cori cycle also takes place in the liver. And urea formation takes place in the liver. And apart from that, liver acts as a hemopoietic organ. That means it plays an important role in the formation of blood cells. So hemopoietic organ and even erythroblastic organ during fetal stage. That means it plays an important role in the formation of RBC during fetal condition. So which is called as hemopoietic organ and erythroblastic organ. And apart from that, liver is the main site for the synthesis of different proteins like albumins, globulins, and blood clotting factors like prothrombin, fibrinogen. Synthesis occurs in the liver only. So like this, liver is the main site for the synthesis of albumins, globulins, and then blood clotting factors. So like this, you can write some 9 to 10 points regarding the functions of the liver, like liver secretes bile juice that which contain bile salts, helping in the emulsification of fats, and the liver plays an important role in controlling carbohydrate and protein metabolism. And the liver acts as a excretory organ and detoxifying organ, and deamination of proteins takes place in the liver, and even urea formation, that is ornithine cycle. Ornithine cycle also takes place in the liver, and Cori cycle occurs in the liver where lactic acid is converted back into glucose through gluconeogenesis, and the liver acts as a hemopoietic and erythroblastic organ, and albumin synthesis, globulin synthesis, and blood clotting factors, that is protein synthesis, occurs in the liver. So like this, liver performs so many functions, which proves that this is most important organ of the body. So hope that everybody will learn these two questions today. Tomorrow I'll explain working of heart with other important questions of SAQs of digestion and respiration. So thank you.